Hello and welcome to World Talks here on TVP World. I'm your host, Marie Cato. The Ukraine Recovery Conference takes place for the 5th consecutive year since the outbreak of the Russian invasion into Ukraine. This year it is co-hosted by Poland and Ukraine in Gdańsk over Thursday and Friday this week. Naturally, the event is dedicated to Ukraine and its many needs, but today we want to talk about the challenges experienced by humanitarian organizations like the International Committee of the Red Cross. Ariane Bauer, Regional Director for Europe and Central Asia at the International Committee of the Red Cross, joins us right now in the studio. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Marie.
So obviously one of the key issues that keeps the media on the toes is the mediation and the exchange of Ukraine and Russian prisoners of war. And I wanted to begin our conversation by asking you about how an organization like yours, the one that you represent, the International Committee of the Red Cross, is involved in events like that.
Mm-hmm. Thanks for asking that question, because I think today the world we're operating in as humanitarian workers is becoming more and more polarized. And the fact that we're working on both sides of conflicts is sometimes misunderstood in many parts of the world, increasingly so. And what actually makes us special within the Red Cross, Red Crescent, and the humanitarian world is that we're able to work on all sides of conflicts. So in the case of Russia and Ukraine, we work on both sides, we engage on both sides, and this is what allows us to take on a very specific role when deals are struck, such as the return of prisoners of war, the returns of human remains, the returns of civilians, where we can actually support authorities in implementing those operations. It's very important for us from a humanitarian perspective because it allows people to go back to their normal lives. But it's also, I think, important from a political perspective because it allows to open communication channels between warring parties.
So for us in the media and also for people who watch these events happen, I suppose we see the end result, the actual exchange. But from your perspective, I'm sure it's a much longer process. Are you able to share how these processes look like, how these deals happen, and to what extent you are involved, perhaps what it is that happens behind the scenes and how organizations like yours are involved?
So our organization is not involved in the deal striking as such. Those are political deals very often. However, what we can do is to come in with technical support. We have a long-standing experience from many other contexts where we can share with authorities how things have gone in the past. There are modalities that need to be respected. The sides need to agree. Obviously, we would hope that they would abide by the terms and conditions so that those deals can actually be carried out. But if you come back to our role, it is indeed important that this degree of trust is built between the parties and my institution, the ICRC, so that we can play that role. And therefore, we ideally have a long-standing relationship and presence on the ground so that we can build that trust through such operations, but also through other activities that we carry out for the sake of affected people.
And in terms of the ICRC, what kind of access do you have to the Ukrainian prisoners of war in Russia? Can you tell us a little bit about the conditions, the treatment there, and also what kind of numbers are we talking about?
So, look, we're quite open about the fact that we have an access to prisoners of war mainly in Ukraine today. We continue to discuss, obviously, with the parties in order to gain full access to everybody. We have been seeing over 9,000 prisoners of war since 2022, the escalation of the armed conflict. And the observations that our teams make during those visits where we assess the conditions of detention, the treatment of detainees, whether or not they are in contact with their families, is something that we share directly and bilaterally with authorities. So there's not much more I can share on that here in the public sphere, but what we aim to do is that through the direct contact with authorities, we really manage to bring on change, improvement for those people until the moment they can return to their loved ones.
And what about the foreign prisoners of war in Ukraine? Are you able to share their status, their nationalities?
So we aim to see everybody that is captured in connection with an armed conflict, and that includes also foreigners, it includes elderly, it includes children. So we look at the whole variety of people who are detained or captured, and then share again our findings with authorities. If they're foreigners and they wish to be notified to their authorities, this is also something that we do, including also reconnecting with their families abroad.
So would you say that the situation is, broadly speaking, moving in a positive direction?
You know, we always remain optimistic, of course, and there are many stumbling blocks along the way, but I think our duty as humanitarian workers is not to give up, to keep the voice of those who are suffering, of those who are in need, alive and loud, and this is what we continue to do, including by being here today.
Mm-hmm. In terms of what the ICRC is doing in the occupied territories of Ukraine, do you have a mandate there?
We do have a mandate to work in all areas affected by conflict, and we do have a presence in Donetsk and in Luhansk today, where we continue to work with local but also with international staff. We continue to bring assistance to affected populations, but also to look at things such as people who have gone missing because of the conflict. So we are in contact with families who live also in those territories who have missing loved ones or people who are captured.
And how does the current situation compare to the situation since 2014?
Look, I think the needs are much more widespread. You know, I think this is something that we can safely say. From 2014 to 22, the needs were very much concentrated in the eastern parts of Ukraine. Today, we see strikes that go well into the territories of the warring parties. They generate humanitarian consequences there as well. We see that people fighting come from everywhere in the country. So if we're talking about families of missing persons, they're spread out across. We also have people who have fled the conflict abroad who have missing loved ones. So, you know, the consequences are very vast, and this allows me to say also that we work very closely with national societies abroad in a network of 50 plus partners in different countries where we seek to collect information on people who have gone missing, and we do that here in Poland as well through our presence, our office in Warsaw, that works very closely with the Polish Red Cross on this issue.
And obviously, we know that Russian soldiers are targeting civilians in the border regions, in Sumy, Chernihiv, and the region that they are basically using drone operators on civilians. These are war crimes. Is the ICRC able to do anything about that?
You know, the use of new technologies, or perhaps they're not that new anymore, but of technologies that impact the conflict and how conflicts are fought today is something we observe indeed very strongly in Russia, Ukraine, but also in other war contexts across the globe. It is for us a concern because indeed, you know, how drones are being flown, how decisions are being made on who's being targeted or not are important issues, especially along the principles of international humanitarian law, which is a body of law that we are here to defend. And therefore, yes, we engage with warring parties on the use of new technologies in war contexts. And try to put forward the need for protection of people who are not participating in the hostilities, such as most civilians.
Do you have all the resources that you need in order to carry out your work in a war zone like Ukraine?
I would like perhaps to dive on 2 points. One is the funding, which continues to be a challenge. I think more and more in the current environment. There is a lot of investment made on defense, but if we look at the humanitarian sector, there's a huge disinvestment, and this is a big concern for us globally. And the second one is security, because we need to be able to access populations in need. And you just mentioned the drones. There are landmines, there are unexploded ordnances, and all of this also makes our access to people that are on the front lines the more complicated.
Is this something that you feel that you are able to approach for instance, President Zelensky at the conference in Gdańsk?
Look, we have contacts on the ground with, the armed forces. This is a very important contact for us that we have on both sides in order to be able to address the security of our teams, but also the way wars are fought and how the hostilities are being conducted.
We know that you are on your way to the Ukraine Recovery Conference. What are your hopes for that time there where so many decision makers essentially are coming together?
It's very important for us to be present together with our colleagues from the Ukrainian Red Cross, the Polish Red Cross, and also the International Federation of the Red Cross, Red Crescent. Because I think it's important that also if we're talking about reconstruction and recovery, that we also don't forget that there are emergency needs still today.
Absolutely.
Our objective is to be able to engage with Ukrainian authorities that will be in Poland, but also with Polish authorities with regards to our operations here in Poland. So it's a really welcomed opportunity for us as a movement to be able to reach out to high-level decision makers.
And just briefly, as we wrap up, what is your experience of working in Ukraine?
I worked in Ukraine myself several years ago, and it's a country that is close to my heart, such as all operations where I was able to work. It's a context that is perhaps different to others in which we operate, where you have functioning authorities. A lot of the states in which we work don't. So, I think what is interesting for us is really to be engaging at sustainable levels with authorities. We aim at having long-term impacts, and this is something that we really hope to be able to achieve for the Ukrainian people.
Okay, Ariane Bauer, Regional Director for Europe and Central Asia, International Committee of the Red Cross. Thank you so much for joining us. We wish you all the best.
Thank you so much.
And that's a wrap for World Talks here on TVP World. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you throughout the day. Goodbye.